Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to talk about a subject that I am very passionate about. We are going to talk about how to use technology and automation in developing our future cities. In today's agenda, we are going to talk about the current market today in Sweden, how Sweden is developing, and what is important when we develop a land in Sweden. How can we automate that process? What do we need to know about the recent market trends and technology trends? And then we are going to show an example on actually how we prospect for a land in north of Sweden for residential development. So let's kick it off with a little bit about me and my background. My name is Alaa Alshawa. I am a passionate architect and city planner, co-founder and CEO of Combify. I believe cities are the ultimate human interface, and we really have to shape them with a lot of care. I moved to Sweden around 7 years ago, and I'm honored to be part in many of the big master plans and urban development projects in Sweden since I moved in. I worked with some of the projects that I'm really proud to be part of was the master plan of Hundfjället 2030, which big part of it is today is under construction, and many nice buildings and changes we did to the area is already now in place. Idrefjäll vision for 2037, where the entire Idrefjäll is going to grow by almost 3x in the coming 12 years. And Hemsta, which is still an early stage, we did the vision for 2040, and we worked a lot with Norra Djurgårdsstaden in Sweden, the Royal Seaport, in creating the digital ID, where all stakeholders in the project were able to come in and collaborate with their own data as the project is being under constructed and planned. So working a lot with urban development and master plans, we got to understand more about the Swedish climate. So today we will start the presentation with a poll on how much land have we developed in Sweden. So please answer. Here we have 4 answers and would like you to think a little bit and vote. Nice, here I see the answers coming in. We have now 3% is winning, competing with 5%. Now we're equal. Okay, that's really interesting. So we got 41% voted for 3% and same to 5%. And this is great, because most of you got it right. The actual answer is 3%. So from the entire Swedish land, in which it is 91% of Sweden total area, we have 30% developed, and almost 40% of this development went to infrastructure, roads and highways, and 38% went to residential development, and the rest to all other buildings, commercial, industrial, and sport facilities, for example. In the last 5 years only, this 3% of land developed in Sweden has increased by 2%, and of course that is due to the enormous need for new residential projects in the country. So that is quite a big improvement if we talk about the entire historical development for land in Sweden. So today, the current state of development land in Sweden, we have approximately yearly 5,200 ongoing development. From these development, we have approximately 25% that get implemented, detaljplaner that win Lagerkraft in a yearly base, and we have around 80,000 building permits that get the permission yearly in Sweden. looking at the Swedish map, the Sweden map, we see that 50% of those developments are actually happening in Götaland, in south of Sweden, 30% goes to the center in Svealand, and 20% goes to Norrland, where it's the biggest, of course, geographical place in Sweden, but it takes the minimum amount of developments to do all the inhabitants and population lives in south and center. 50% of this development goes to residential, 23% to commercial, and the rest goes to school, industrial, and healthcare. So what do I need to know when prospecting for a piece of land for development? How can I be part of those developments that are happening in Sweden today? What are the information that is really important and essential for me to understand before starting my development journey? So first, you need to understand the local need and demands. Is there a need for whatever I am going to develop here? If we're developing a residential project, how the demographics look like? What type of household do we have in the area? What are the attractive services and nearby services and transportation that will allow me to build and develop residential in this location? So as we answer the questions on the local needs, we go to the government policies and plans. Is it possible to build on this piece of land? Is this land part of the municipality master plan? And if yes, does it have an ongoing development, or is there any old development that happened in the area, or is it still raw land? It has no development, and we need to run the process with the government. So all of this information we need to have in place to move forward with our development case. Now, after we have justified all the criteria and we had all the answers for this part, then we need to know now who owns this land and who owns the neighborhood, and what are their plans that are in place for what is going to happen in this area. And here we need to have more information about the property itself when we zoomed up from an area of interest to a single property. So how do we develop this land now, as we have actually found this potential property for us to develop? In Sweden, we have these three types of lands, or actually worldwide, we can say. We have the green land and we have the brown land. And then we have the land that has ongoing development. So there is undeveloped land, which is 97% of Sweden today. And then we have the land that is under development, and those are the developments that the lands that has ongoing case or application, or they are under construction right now. Then we have the developed land, which is where we all live and work. In Sweden, the process, as you all familiar with, starts from the municipality master plan, the Översikt plan, and then it goes into the early stage development. And that when the developer and the municipality work together in the early stage before announcing that project to the public. And those, here we have these two phases of planbesked and planuppdrag, and then that goes to the public and the neighbors to give their opinion on the development. And that when this development plan goes to get all the opinions, and then if everything works well, the project will get implemented and it will win laga kraft, where the developer, you as a developer, can apply for the building permit and then start the construction. So it's a very straightforward process. Of course, it involves a lot of back and forth between all the stakeholders that are involved in the process. And here we can show an example, for example, in Umeå. So here in Umeå, if we look at the map of Umeå, so we see all the three types of lands. You have the lands that are still raw lands, nothing has happened here. And then we have all the gray zones are properties and lands that have an implemented development plans. And then we have the one in orange, and those are the ones that are ongoing. On the right picture, we see here, where are the building permits for the new construction? Where are the new buildings being constructed today in Umeå, or got a positive building permit? So our next question would be, what is the fourth fastest growing municipality in Sweden when it's come to population and land development and need for housing. Good. We have Uppsala, Helsingborg. We have a clear competition there. Helsingborg is winning. Great. Great. So here we have almost very close Helsingborg and Uppsala. Very close answers here we have. And the answer is, it's actually Uppsala. That is the fourth fastest growing municipality in Sweden. And here I have a problem with this. Yes, sorry. Yeah. So Uppsala is the fourth fastest growing municipality in Sweden after, of course, the major three big cities in Sweden, Stockholm, Göteborg, and Malmö. And Helsingborg comes actually number 5. So here in this graph, you see 29 cities or municipalities in Sweden in which half of the population is actually living in. That is amazing because in Sweden we have 290 municipalities, and that shows us the urbanization that is happening to the country and has been happening for the last couple of decades. So those municipalities are responsible for 50% of the population, and they will be adding in the next 7 years 30,000 new inhabitants. And those inhabitants will be in need for houses, for services, schools, places to work. And here we can see, based on SAP data, exactly the forecast for each municipality growth. And that will take us on to, okay, but if those people are moving to these cities, where those people are going to live. And here we are going to talk about first, what is the average household size in Sweden? So that would be our third and final question for you today. Good, 1.5, 2.15. Very few of you think that 4 people live in the same household in Sweden, which is interesting. Great. So here we have 2.151, and it's actually correct. In Sweden, we have the average household size is 2.15 people, and it's actually decreased from 2.16 from 2021. So today in Sweden, currently, those 29 biggest cities and municipalities, they have 2.3 million households, and they are estimated to grow by 140,000 new households, and those households is what we are talking about, needing a lot of services and houses. And those municipalities are trying to work it out with their ongoing plan, the master planning, and the development on how to enable developers to come in and fill this need in the coming few years. So here, where does those households live? Because each municipality is different than the other one based on like where people are live. In Stockholm, as an example, everyone lives in apartments, or most of the population lives in apartments as rental apartments and owned apartments. But if we think of like Huddinge, for example, or Nacka, you see more trend to people moving there to start a family, and then you need more houses in those spaces. So here, based on SAP data, so we see where people live, or households live in each of those biggest 29 municipalities. So as an example, in Umeå, so we see here 32% of people are living in owned houses, where they own the land and they own the property. They own the property and the house. We have, when it's come to apartments, for example, we have almost 50% of inhabitants in Umeå live in apartments. A really interesting difference you see between the biggest cities where more people living in apartments than living in houses. If we compare that to the entire country, where more people on the big scale in Sweden lives in houses than those that are living in apartments. And this is changing on the side of people moving into cities. So here, if we run this data model into the actual need for houses and apartments in each of these municipalities, so we see that we have a need to build in the next 7 years 90,000 new apartments in only on those 29 municipalities, and 36 new houses to fill the need for the growth. And we see that those numbers, of course, changes based on where people live in each city. So if we look here back at Omeo, we see that Omeo is in need for almost 2,000 residential apartments, and then we have the need for almost 1,200 houses. So that's now really interesting insight to see the actual need for every city in Sweden and what is needed to be built. But now, as a developer, how do I make a decision, and how do I find the right land for my own development? And that's what we are going to focus on today. How do we develop land, and when do I come in that development process in Sweden? So if we look at the main 3 types of developers or development approaches in Sweden, we can see that there are big group of developers that come into a green land, which they decided to run the entire process of development. They look at the municipality master plan, they start with a raw land, and then they run the entire process of the detailed plan, the development plan with the municipality. That might take between 12 months to 5 years, depends on the size and the complexity of the project. And then they continue the permits and the construction, and they sell the final result to citizens. And then you see the other type of developers that actually only work on the legal part, on the development document, which they purchase the land and they make sure that the process goes smooth with the municipality, and then they reach to a point where they now have the right to build on this land, and then they sell it to smaller developers to actually take care of the construction and make the project happen. And that's when we have the third group, where they buy building rights. So they don't run the development itself, but they come in and buy building right, and they run and manage the construction. So here you can see, when you are prospecting, a developer needs to know what we are going now to look at. What are our criteria? Are we going to run the development, or are we looking at something that already implemented and we need to buy building right? So that will take us to how to find a good land to develop the project we are intended to work on. And here we look at on how can we automate the process? How can technology, how can data, how can this complex process put into ease by using this technology to allow us to look at fewer examples. For example, in Sweden, we have 4.3 million properties, and it's humanly impossible to look at all of them and make a good decision. So the way we think technology can automate this process is by first, for the developer to define the exact criteria for my development. What is exactly the intention to be built right now here? And run that through a database that contain all the elements that is and activities that is interesting and a major factor on how to decide on a land. So for example, what is the municipality master plan in this area? What are the ongoing developments in this region? What are the historical data? Who owns what? The property information. What permits do we have here? Is there any land allocation in this area where the municipality is interested in giving tender to developers to develop what the municipality needs. Who are the active players in this region, and what are the market trends? So all of these like complex data, usually we run very manually when we prospect for land. We build our own case, we build our own business intelligence system that takes all of this information, we digest, and then we turn that into opportunities, into a list of lands that tell us, okay, here is a potential development, and here's another development, and then we do the financial forecast and see if this would actually be a good deal. So we think with automation, we can actually automate that process of getting that real-time data happening in the entire country, where the developer can feed the criteria to this engine and produce opportunities on the go, where the user actually take a look at those potential lands for development and then refine the criteria based on the finding and then run the model again. So we end up with the best option that there is. As an example, let's say that I need to find land in Omeo that is owned by a municipality where I can develop a minimum of 40 mid-size apartment, and I need this land to have a water view because we want to build nice apartments, and we need it to be very close to all the services, like 15 minutes walk to school, to the bus station, and we want the max land price for this land to be 5,000 SEK. So this is now my criteria, or my initial criteria, and how can I filter all lands in Omeo to get to actually to the list I'm intended to have. So let's run an actual example and show you how can we actually do that in that part with using automation and technology today. So here we have a real-time view of the entire country, showing everything happening today and has happened historically in Sweden. So if we start by going into Omeo, so here we see, this is a map of Omeo where we see all the ongoing development or the historical development and what is currently happening in the country. So let's say that we need now to only filter on the municipality. So here we see the number of developments happening. We have 15 mark and visiting land allocations, the building permits, and the development plans. So let's start prospecting. Now we want to look only at the planned development, something that is unconstructed yet. And as we said, what are the projects that are still now between developer and municipality? They are not announced for consultation for Samråd yet. And then the ones that comes after Samråd, which are already in consultation and they are close to be implemented in Omeo. So now if I choose this, then you see now a map of this development. And now I want to see only the ones that are actually in the domain of residential. And I don't want to see the ones that are actually canceled, put on hold, or the one that were appealed. I only want to see the ongoing cases. So here we can filter out those ones. So we see now there is like 139 ongoing development. And of course, this size here, like have a big variety. It can be a new development for building 3 houses, and it can be a development to build quite big residential project. So let's choose something big. So here, if we zoom in, we click on this project. Here is a project where we can see it's on the casting phase, and this is quite a big development happening today. Here we can explore the project, see that here they are building quite a lot of residential units. We have here 5 lands that are going for schools, and we have here a commercial line following the main street, which is very logical. So, okay, this is a very interesting project. I see that there's a lot will be happening in this area here, and I want, here comes like the decision on what is my criteria. Am I going to be interested in coming in to this project, or do I want to start my own development, but on the fact that there is quite activity in this region. So let's say I am not really big developer, like huge developer. I am a smaller developer that just want to build a couple of residential units, like maybe, or one residential unit in this land. So if I click on this land here, as I know there is ongoing development, it has waterfront, it looks nice, and it looks that there's a lot will be happening in this area. Okay, now I want to see who owns this land if I want to make a next move. Okay, that is interesting. I can see here that it's Omyo municipality who owns this land. Okay, that would be an interesting land to me. So I will add it to my projects here, and then I will just type it as, give it a tag. It's my Omyo project. Give it a color, just save it. I'm now saving this property. So anything will be happening in this property, I want to keep track of. And then this project is in the casting phase. So I want to keep track of everything happening on this project itself. I want to track the progress of the construction and the new phases. So I will add as well this project to my list as my project, and then I will add it as my Omyo Start project. I close it. Okay, what else do we have in this area? Something that might be interesting. Here we have a more earlier stage development where we see here there's a plan of drug datum that is 2020, and that seems that this project is stuck for a reason in the municipality. I can read all the information about this project, justify the interest of it, and then okay, I need to see, okay, who is actually developing this land. So I can go to this exact property and do the exact same here. Okay, show me who owns this piece of property. Okay, so here we see the owner and what price they actually purchased this property for. Well, now I have an interesting, could be interesting location to look at for me. It can be the project itself to contact the owner, or it could be that I am interested in the next property to it, which is this one. And then I can, of course, as said, like mark this property, tag it, and see who owns it, and run the rest of my R&D to this. But now, okay, now this is how I look at the current situation and see what is interesting. And I want not to add these filters now moving forward all the time. I want to keep track of every new project that is happening now in Omyo that matches with my criteria, so I don't need to do this work every time. So here I want to track that exact search that I'm doing here. So I want to create here like a monitoring service, bevakning, and I would call it like my Omyo project. I want to get notified. I want to get a report either weekly or monthly of all new development that matches with the little criteria I put right now. We can add, of course, more complex criteria on a keyword that must be in a project, a specific land use, and then as I save it. So here now I have automated my project prospecting in Omyo for Bostad. So here I see it here in my tracking, where I click here always, and then I see everything that is happening recently when it's come to all residential development in Omyo. Now, this is when it's come to something that is in the very early stage, something that has no development happening. So we can see what interesting properties we have on the edges, or the actual development, and can I be part of this one? But then we have another one, which is the implemented development. So what building right are there now in Malmo if I am a developer, in where I come in and apply for a permit, and then purchase the land, apply for a permit, manage the construction, and exit the project? So that is another view that I need to look at, in which here we go to the implemented development. If we look at the implemented development now, I want to see, of course, this includes everything happening historically in Malmo, but that is not everything. Like that's what I want to look at. I want to look at all the recent development or implementation that happened in the last year or in a specific time range, because it takes quite many months from the development to be in the to get the implementation, to win the Lara Croft, to get the building permit. So here I want to see what do we have in Omeo when in Postad in the last year. So as I here filtered, so I see we have 9 projects that get into implementation recently. So if we go to one of them here, so we can see this is quite small development. We see that we can explore what is happening on this development, and then we see that it's not really a very big project, so not interesting. We can go to the next one. Here we see as well, it's a pipeline. Yeah, so this could be an interesting project for me, so I can also add it, tag it, and track the project, and then we can see if they actually got the building permit. So here we see they did not, because this is a building permit that is older than the development itself. So it's not actually related to the development, but it's related to the property. So now, if we want to add, for example, change Postad and look at, I want to look at the industrial development right now that is happening in north of Sweden. Let's get out of Malmö. And then, okay, now show me what do I have in Bottenland as in all development when it's come to the industrial. So here we see there are like 361 ongoing industrial development in Norrbotten. Okay, show me now what are the ones that are actually got into implementation in the last year. Because I am interested in buying actually an industrial land. Here we have 5, so here we already limited our options to something really niched. So here we can see these projects, we can read about them, we can explore who owns the properties, what is happening in the surrounding, what type of building permits are there in place, and then we can, of course, automate now that search into, okay, now I want to click on save it. It's here, industrial north. And then I want to automate that for me. So I will receive a report for everything happening in this project. And here I can also see what this project is going to how this project is going to develop on all, how the lands now are going to be built, when the permits will be in place. And then I can, for an example here, go to this property that is an interesting one for me. I can track it and I can see if any building permit will be appearing here, and I can see, of course, who owns it and so on. So a lot automation can help us with. This is, I hopefully try to give just some examples on how can I create my own tracking of something I am interested to develop, and how I can use technology to gather or to answer most of the question I have while doing this land prospecting. So I'm aware of the ongoing development, what other companies are working on this area, who is going to build what, and how that is aligned with the municipality vision and the actual market need and the demographic changes in the region. Thank you.
We have some questions, Alaa.
Yes.
If you go into the chat, you see them as well. The first one is about the data in Combify, where it comes from. Does it come from the municipalities, from other places, etc.? Thinking about the security, the data.
Yes. So the data, the way it's very interesting how we gather the data. So basically, in the European Construction Commission law, every municipality in the EU needs to publish all of their ongoing development and their ongoing building permits. But the law does not define on how to publish this data, in what format, and in what way you need to actually publish this data. So what we have done is we built an automated model that goes to every municipality and check it every day and see what are the new published, what are the new ongoing projects that are happening in these municipalities, and then it grasps all of these data on a daily basis, and then we classify this data. Okay, this is now the municipality has announced a new development plan, or the municipality has announced a new update on a development plan that is happening in a project that has already been published before. So a change in phases, or the municipality has a new land allocation, a new building permit. All of these activities that the municipality, the local government is in need for publishing, we take that. Even if the municipality has met and they have a meeting protocol where the land and development department met and they have decided that next year or in X months we are going to actually have a land allocation. Oh, that's interesting information. It could be even one line, but it's like a newsworthy to someone who is in the business of land development in that specific region. So we take this information, we classify it on, okay, this is a detailed plan, this is a building permit, this is tender, and then we extract all of this information from all the documents that are attached on this project. And then we build this digital profile that allow you to search and prospect and find that project easily on high level. And then we enhance that with the data model based on all the data point we know about this municipality. Let's say in Omeo, we know we have 20,000 data point where we know like all the projects that happened historically in Omeo. Then we can estimate what our next phase will be in Omeo for this project in that area, in that category. And then we create a forecast, and then we build that profile with its own boundary on the map where you can actually track. And that has a live view of all the changes or all the attached data happening on the municipality. That only when it's come to one source, which is the local government. But what we did also, we linked that information with the property information, which comes from a whole different entity in Sweden, which is Lantmäteriet. And then here you have who owns the land, the different, like the changes in ownership, the new property lines. Some properties get smaller, some property get bigger, and that is linked to the same project. So now you have different domains, and now we are even adding demographics. So like, okay, who move in and who moves out to this region, and of course the master plan that will be also coming soon in a digital form, where we can see if this property is even part of the vision of the municipality. So that's how we gather the data, and we do that for like the 290 municipality of Sweden.
I hope that was a long answer.
Yeah.
Good one. I hope you were satisfied. Walter is asking, vad betyder den där stämpeln validerad på projektet?
Yeah, absolutely. So validated in a project, it means that when a project gets frozen in municipality where there is like nothing happening in it, so one would be wondering, okay, like, is it that there are activities happening on this project, but we are not aware of, and there were like no announcement, no publishing on this project? Or is it that this project is really stuck due to a certain political reason or some investigations that are still ongoing between developer and the municipality? And what we do is when we validate this project, that the system suggests to us that needs to be checked, because based on the historical data, this project need to have a change today. So we contact the municipality and then we check with them about this project. Is there any data that you have missed in publishing or announcing, or is there any update on this project? And then that when we put that this project has been validated, even if it's like 3 years old, the data, but it was actually validated last week. So you make sure that you're not missing any important data on this project.
Hey. We got a new question from Fabio. Hello, har ni mer strandskydd? So close to water.
Yeah. Yes. So this is we have, but it's not yet implemented. So we are working on it because it has a lot of criteria to actually add. We have 70,000+ lakes in Sweden, so there are quite many waterfront, and we are now working on a smart model where it allows you to create the actual distance to water, because we have two factors in this close to water. It can close to water in a linear way that you have a view, and it can close to water by like you want to walk to the water, and that two different ways to measure it. Because if you want to walk to X, it's water or any other services, then we need, of course, to implement the data of all the roads in Sweden, what is like pedestrian roads, main roads, highways. So now we have the data, and we are going to implement it hopefully soon, if our chief product officer is hearing me now.
Yeah, and things are moving fast.
Yes.
Another question from Anton. I wonder how the need for 30,000 houses and 90,000 apartments was calculated. Is it something like taking estimated population increase? Basically, how did that calculation, how was it done?
Yes, so it's very simple metric. So first we look at the current population in this municipality. Then we look at the last 9 years trend, and then of course, like SAP already did that when it comes only for the forecasting of the new people moving into a city. So the last 9 years trend, and they update that trend or that model every 31st of December of every year based on the recent year. So this is really like the closest you can be to accuracy. And then it forecasts how this municipality is going to grow in the coming years. So we take the number of people moving in, or the newborn, or the type of demographics, because it has as well many different factors on the age group, and are people moving in for work, or are they like born here, what the age group, and all the other factors. And then we multiply that by the number of households based on the region. Now we get like 2.15 is the specific to the entire country, but we have on a district level on every part of Sweden, what is the household size in this area, because it can go up or down. And then we multiply that by where household live on that district. So are this district more hyresrätt, lägenhet, rental apartments, or is it more endabostadshus? And that then we make the estimate on what is the need based on the demographics changes and the municipality trend today in living. That gives us the need for houses, and then of course we take that data, and then we see what is today on the ongoing development, because we measure the size and the type of development of the ongoing construction and the planned ones, as in parhus, kedjehus, the number of them. And then we see, does that match with what is actually needed? And then you see now here the potential opportunity. I hope I answered.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Har ni med riksintresse som fornlämningar, infläggningszoner med? Maybe that's connected to. We also have a Rickard's question. Holding up. What happened to the criteria like distance to public transport, price for land? Do you have to manually find them?
Yes. Yes, I mean today it is on the platform, as we are growing really fast right now on really actually like getting all the feedback we are getting from all the developers we are working with, and then we actually had that feedback a lot on how also, because today we managed to automate all the ongoing activities that are happening, and that was like a hell of job, like just to get in place and to make sure that the quality is up to the expectation. But now, okay, after we're done with this, like all the ongoing activities that I showed on the timeline is already in place. Now our next move is, now we are getting all the schools in Sweden, all the building, literally like every single building in Sweden, and they're like in the mall, like the building use, if it's one or multiple. And then we are taking that data, classifying it, and then we, on the property level, the intention will be, by hopefully the coming period of this development, is that when you click on a property, you actually see the distance for every X you want to know. And that is data-wise possible, but it's of course need to be built smartly in a way that it won't create complexity for you while prospecting. We want to deliver a process that is smooth and that is reliable, because it's very important that we answer. If we answer this question, we need to answer it the best way it is. So you don't have to do the work twice. I need to do it manually, and I can see how can I automate it. No, we need to ensure that if it's being done automated, in an automated way, it has to be fully reliable. But it is doable, and we are working on it.
Thank you so much, Alaa. We had a question if it's possible to test Combify. And I just want to highlight that I placed a link in the chat, so you can try it out for free for 7 days. You have access to the full service, all features. So very welcome to sign up for that. And I think we're about ending here. So thank you for all the questions. Please sign up for a demo on the website, or contact us if you have more questions. I know Alaa would love to answer them.
Yes, I would definitely love to answer all the questions. And if anyone would love to actually have a more in detailed talk on exactly how we can help on the current challenge that you have today, either if it's not related to I want to buy a land and I want to develop it, I am a consultant, I provide my service for those who are building, like who should I contact, who should I talk to, what type of development is now going in a specific region, who is developing what. All of those questions we would be more than happy to actually answer all of you, and work on your specific case and challenges that you have today.
Thank you everyone for joining. You will have an email with a free trial, the recording, and the presentation as well. And I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.